Hi guys, welcome to the first session on clustering. So in this session we would be discussing the basic definitions and what clustering is all about. Okay, so the definition of clustering is the process of organizing objects into groups whose members are similar in some way. So what we're trying to say here is that clustering is a process where we create homogeneous groups. So let's read the second statement also. Cluster is therefore a collection of objects which are similar between them and are dissimilar to objects belonging to other clusters. So if I have say if I give you randomly a data set which has A, B, say ABs and ABs written very close to each other and something like that. If you have to this is a data set, if you have to make clusters, so I would make simply, as a simple example, I would make a cluster 1 and a cluster 2. Cluster 1 would have all types of A's and cluster B will have all types of B's. So what we are trying to do is, a cluster is therefore a collection of objects which are similar between them, among themselves they are similar, and dissimilar to objects belonging to other clusters. Let's look at the an example on next slide, then we'll come back to this slide again. Okay, so here is an example of the clustering process that we have. We start with the raw data. So here is an example of clustering process that we have. We start with raw data. So like in my previous example, we start with text of A's and B's, and we start with the raw data. We run a clustering algorithm. This is what we would learn in the session, for upcoming sessions, how to run a clustering algorithm, and then we come out with an output of clusters of data. So the example that I have is, these are some locks of different types. So there are 2-3 matrices how I can define these different types of blocks is: one, not all have the same color, so color is a differentiating factor among them. Second, not all are of same size, so size is another factor that is determining them. If I take these two variables and there are two types of colors, let's say a green and an orange color. There are two types of sizes, one is big and one is a small size. If I take these two variables and I sort them out, so this block looks like an orange and a small, this one is a green and a big, this one is a orange and a big, same is the case with this one. This is an OS, this is an OB, same thing, there's an OS, orange and small, and this is green and big, and so is the case with this one also. So what I've done is, using these two matrices, I've categorized all of my locks. Now what I can do is, I can sort them accordingly. I can pick up all these OS and I can put them in together. All these OS put together is nothing but your cluster 1. This is nothing but your cluster 2, which is your OB, orange and big size, and this is nothing but your cluster 3, which is GB, green and big size. So this is a very simple example of what clustering is, and this is what we try to do with data also. In our data set, where we have demographics information, where we have transactional information, where we have behavioral information, all that we are trying to do is make logical groups. This is nothing but making logical groups together. Okay, now let's go back to some of the definitions. They might make a little more sense now. So let's read that again. Clustering is a process of organizing objects into groups whose members are similar in some way. Cluster is therefore a collection of objects which are similar among them and are dissimilar to the objects belonging to another cluster. The important points are these 2 points. Pattern recognition, when there is no dependent variable involved, is one of the areas where clustering is used. Till now, whatever you have learned in analytics, there was always a dependent variable involved in it. clustering is the first technique that you're using, which is an unsupervised learning process, where there is no supervision to the extent that we are trying to sort out our data, we are trying to make groups in our data, so that our losses are separated, so that our responses are separated, so that our fraud customers are separated, or something like that. There is nothing like that. There are just logical pairs and groups that have been made together. So that in a nutshell is what clustering is about. So that is for this session. Next session we would see some of the uses of clustering.